Welcome to the Faith Washington Show. We will discuss life, business, leadership, family, and fun, and what happens when your view of the world expands. A wide variety of guests will provide insight on how they do business, family, and leadership in their lives. So now, here's today's show. Hey, good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us here on the Faith Washington Show. I'm Faith Washington. I am a pharmacist and biochemist, also certified strength and conditioning specialist, certified personal trainer. I've done a whole bunch of things in my life, but I love entrepreneurs. And tonight I have a special guest, and her name is Darcy Barron. She runs a thermography center, which we're going to learn about tonight. And we are live streaming on Facebook this evening on the Faith Washington Show and AMP2 TV Productions. We're also live on 95.3 FM, 1470 AM, and the iHeartRadio app.
Wow.
Yeah. It's everywhere.
We're all over now.
So, yeah, Darcy, please. Darcy, you own Third Eye Thermography Holistic Center, LLC,
Correct.
And that is in Fort Lauderdale? Is that correct?
Yes, it's on Cypress Creek Road.
Cypress Creek Road, okay.
Yeah.
So, please, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, where you're coming from, all that good stuff.
Okay. Thank you for having me on tonight.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
It's a pleasure meeting you. And so, originally, I started off, I was a hairdresser, and when I was 27, I was medically disabled from the chemicals. I was toxic in toluene, methacrylate, and they said, you're disabled and you may not recover.
Just in case you folks don't know those terms, methacrylate and toluene are actually very highly toxic chemicals that are used.
Yes.
Ooh, I just broke your pen, sorry.
That's okay.
That are used in the cosmetic industry pretty regularly and in salons, especially with doing hair coloring, things like that. So you must have been really sensitive and were exposed to too much. Yeah, you absorbed it, right.
I don't sweat very much, so I absorbed it and it just built up and built up.
Wow.
So luckily I found Dr. Robbins, who put me through a whole series of infrared saunas, chelation therapy. I had to exercise, but when I exercised, I had to actually take oxygen or I would pass out because my red blood cells were clotting together.
Whoa.
And it was
That'll kill you.
Yeah.
That can kill you. That's pretty scary.
I wasn't getting blood flow. It was a little scary when you stand up and you pass out. But
wow. So how, you know what, this is just a quick segue.
Yeah.
How'd you find Dr. Robbins, who's probably off the beaten path compared to, normal allopathic medicine? Was it a series of people, questions, friends?
Oh, no. When I was going to allopathic doctors, they all told me, oh, you're under stress. Okay. I was 27. My only stress was, who's going to make my dress for the next club opening?
Right.
Okay. I was like, really?
Right. You
Spare
didn't
me.
know.
I had no stress back then. Okay.
Right.
But one of my clients says, maybe you have allergies. And I'm thinking, I don't have allergies. I don't get rashes or hives. But I figured, what the heck? Nothing else is working. Let me go see him.
Right. And that's how you found him.
And
awesome.
Found him. And
fabulous.
What a difference. It turned my life around. I got my life back. Instead of working 4 days and sleeping 3, I was able to get back to living life again.
Wow, that's awesome.
But through that, I was able to learn about nutrition, learn about supplements, learn about how the environment affects you, which I had no clue back then.
And food and nutrition. Food. My daughter, Taylor, are you watching? If you are, it's all about the food. Food is medicine.
Everything you eat is you.
Yes.
But it's what you absorb and what you take in and what you absorb.
And what you don't.
Correct.
That's important too.
Because if you're not absorbing what you're taking in, then it's not helping. You got to find out why you're not absorbing it.
Right.
And as you had said earlier, it normally comes down to your gut issues.
Absolutely. The microbiome, which we've discussed before, not quite at length with Brian and Lauren when they were on a couple weeks ago, but it's incredibly important.
Yes.
And without that microbiome being balanced and ready to go, you're right, things don't get absorbed.
No.
Then we have all sorts of disease states that come into play. You've got Crohn's disease, diverticulitis, diverticulosis, IBS, which is so not specific, it's a joke.
And it just snowballs. And things keep building up, snowballs from one to the next to the next.
Right.
So since I learned about that, I had so many angels and everybody that came into my path to help me along the way and different people. I ran across Ellen Comey, the natural nurse.
Okay.
She's fabulous. You can look her up. She
I've heard the
can
name.
help you
I've heard
through
the
all
name.
kinds of things. Dr. Wallach, way back when Dead Doctors Don't Lie, if you ever heard him.
Yes. Yeah.
Fabulous information. Listen to his tapes. I mean, it just helps to open your eyes to how things really do affect you.
Right.
But it made me want to be able to help others to be able to feel better.
Right.
And when I learned about thermography, I'm like, this is incredible. You know,
Because
but
people shouldn't be sick.
no.
No
you
one
don't
should be
have
sick.
to be.
You don't have to be sick.
No.
It's about the food. It's about eating properly. Oh, did I say that again? I'm so sorry.
Yes.
I digress. All right. So, talk to us about thermography, which I'm not an expert. I know very little about it until we spoke this evening before the show.
So with thermography, we have to be very cautious. We have to state up front. It is
Okay.
not diagnostic.
Got it.
It cannot treat or diagnose any diseases.
Okay.
But what it is, it's an infrared image. And infrared, we all give off infrared light, but
Okay.
you can't see it with your eyes.
Okay.
So what the camera does, it makes it so that we can see the different shades of heat coming off of you from your skin. Thermography camera only goes 5 millimeters into the skin. It's not like an ultrasound. We can't see your gallbladder in there.
Right.
But what happens when you have something starting to go wrong, okay, you're either going to have your blood cells getting more activity because they're trying to feed whatever's going on, okay, or no activity because it's not getting any blood circulation. So if there's a lack of cellular activity,
Right.
lack of blood flow, it's going to be very cold.
Okay.
Okay, and
so
that's
the
gonna
temperature would be
show.
lower. I just want to show them
Right.
briefly. I don't know if the camera will pick up
Yeah.
on this. Here we go. It looks pretty good. Okay. The imaging and the gradients go from the higher temperatures here.
So
all right,
white is
so
hot.
white is hot, and then the red.
goes to reds.
And then it goes down
All the
further
way down.
into the
Black
cooler.
is cold.
Right, black is cold into the cooler colors of the
Yes.
spectrum. And that's kind of when you look at the image. This is an image of our friend John's back. And then these are his hands. And like I said, you can't see much on this camera, but that is indicative of whatever
Some
is
of your
going on.
Initial signs before things. And one of the problems we have with allopathic medicine is they're going to say this is going to give you false positives.
Okay, got it.
And the reason being, like if somebody's hands, when you're doing a thermography and say this is like almost black,
Right.
where their fingers aren't showing up,
Yeah, that'd be scary.
that can be one of the initial signs of diabetes.
Wow.
Or a nerve root impingement. They're not getting blood flow. It's telling you there's no blood flow going on.
So it's
because
cold.
it's cold.
Right.
It's telling you it's cold. So you need to follow up with your doctor. You need to call your
Right.
doctor, find out what's going on.
Right.
Okay, why is there no blood flow? And so it lets you have those first signs to know it's happening before it becomes something major.
Right.
And by getting those first signals, you can sometimes just make simple dietary changes and you never get it.
Yeah.
It's just completely gone.
That's what we like.
Same thing.
No drugs.
We can't say that it prevents cancer or causes cancer or detects cancer.
Right.
But cancer cells require lots of blood flow.
Absolutely.
They got to be fed.
Yep.
They're hungry.
Yep.
So when you see real increased heat, okay, we got to find out why. And this tells you, okay, you need to look deeper. You need to find out what's going on so that you can stop this before it becomes it. And that's the whole purpose.
Right.
Is trying to be
It's-
proactive.
right.
To make the changes
Instead
so you
of
know
reactive.
what you need to work on. Right.
Yes, exactly. And there's no radiation involved.
No radiation.
No pain.
Nope. It's just someone taking a picture of you.
And then
Very easy.
And then once you've done the scan, then you send that out to a physician who's
Correct.
trained in reading thermographic scans, and he or she is going to read the scan that you've taken and
Correct.
interpret it. If I understood correctly, you stated that you can have things read electronically or by a human, and you said that when humans read the scans, it's much more accurate.
Absolutely.
Okay, so remember to get a doctor to read your thermography scans.
When you decide to go for a thermography, there's a lot of great centers here. But you want to know who's going to do the reading. Is it electronically? is it a doctor?
Right.
Okay. And if it's a doctor, is it someone you can contact? If there's something you're not really sure about, or maybe your physician, when you want to follow up, says, well, I'd like to talk to this. Well, what does he mean by that?
Right.
Are you able to reach out to that doctor? And when I just opened my center in May, when I opened up, I sent my scans to multiple doctors, and I wanted to know, who can I reach out and talk to?
Right,
Who can I
right.
call?
Who can you trust?
Who will call me back if there's an issue?
Who can you trust?
And
Yep.
I narrowed it down, because if I get a reading back and I can't talk to them and question something, then what's my client going to feel?
They're not going to feel comfortable. Not going to feel
Exactly.
happy that they came in and had it done, when the whole idea is to partner with them and collaborate
Right.
for the best outcome for their health.
Exactly. So I send my scans to Dr. Amalou. He is fabulous. He's
Okay.
been doing it for 30 years.
Wow.
And he can narrow things down and sends you a report that you can take to your doctor. The doctors read it. They can communicate if there's more questions.
Awesome.
It's easy. They can call him and he'll get right on the phone with them.
Yeah,
It's
I like that.
amazing. He makes himself accessible.
It's called collaborative healthcare.
Yes.
The best of the best. That's how we do it.
Yeah.
And there's also
So-
something else that we talked about that I think is really important, and that is that it is an environmentally controlled space that you do the
Right.
scan in, because as you said, like if there's an air conditioning vent, or if it's a mobile unit, it's not going to be as accurate.
No.
And we want the most accurate scan possible.
The temperature
right?
in the room needs to be 68 to 72 degrees, and it needs to be stable. If there is an air vent blowing on you, it's going to completely throw off that thermogram, because it's going to alter. If you just fan yourself, you'll feel a difference in temperature on the skin if you go like that.
Right.
So it's the same thing if that air vent's blowing
Right.
on you, and that's going to reflect on the camera,
Okay.
because it's a very sensitive camera.
Okay.
So you want a complete controlled environment with no draft.
Okay.
You want to make, so that's why I chose not to be mobile.
I think that's smart. I think
I'm
that's very wise, and it's going to give
Right.
your patients the most accurate readings. Folks, you can find Darcy Barron at Third Eye Thermography Holistic Center.com. Third Eye is the number 3 RD, then EYE Thermography Holistic Center.com. Her phone number is 954-204-5602, and she is by appointment only, so please at least give her a call. If you have questions or you've got some things that you're feeling or thinking, please, by all means, just reach out. Darcy is
Yeah.
super nice, very open, and very willing to help. So let's also then talk about that next piece that you use that goes with this, called Cell Wellbeing.
and it's fabulous. It's this little machine, and we take your hair root. It has to be the root, not the follicle.
Okay.
And the reason why the root is so important is because your root's fed by your blood. So we're getting
Directly.
Yes.
Okay.
So it has to be fresh. It's not something you can mail in, and
Okay.
do it later.
Right.
It has to be fresh, right on the machine.
Okay.
It reads all of the information on there, sends it to Germany, comes back in 15 minutes. You have a complete 34-page report.
Wow.
And it will tell you your vitamins, your minerals. It's called nutrient mapping, because it's not going to tell you so many milligrams, but it'll let you know what's a priority, what are you not absorbing, what do you need more of. But the best part about it tells you what foods you get it from. Not just go take a handful of vitamins. It's going to tell you the foods. But
So maybe you need pecans or walnuts or
Right.
a little selenium, so you're going to have
Correct.
more nuts or things like that. So that's what it's going to delineate in this report that you get back.
exactly.
Okay.
But it also tells you if you have molds, fungus, if you have viruses, if you have parasites in your system, if you have radiation. I've seen people when they go for a mammogram, they come in to me 2 weeks later, I pull their hair root, and it's filled with radiation. 2 weeks after a mammogram, it still shows in the hair root. Amazing.
No.
Yes.
That's not
I mean,
amazing. That's
it's
scary.
and they say, oh, but it's minimal. It doesn't stay in your system. 2 weeks later, it's still
Not?
showing up in your system.
Wow.
Mammograms are great because it is complementary to this. But, think about what you're exposing yourself to.
Agreed.
know,
Yeah, I
so-
don't love to expose myself to radiation, and
You know,
I don't enjoy having those things done.
This is meant to work together with other things. But also with the cell well-being, it's easier to see what you're uptaking, because sometimes if you're not absorbing things, then you can also pinpoint other things that are going on. Like when I have some people come in, one woman came in, she was low in thyrosin, she was low in B9, B6, B12, and she was taking all these Bs, but she wasn't absorbing them. And I looked at it and I said, oh, and low in selenium. I said, first of all, you need to get your thyroid checked, because it's probably a thyroid issue, and you probably could be MTHFR, which is where you have problems methylating.
Right.
So she's not methylating her Bs to absorb them. She switched to methylated Bs, which immediately, 2 weeks later, she called me. She was like, oh my God, I have so much energy. I can do stuff. Thank you so much. I said, but you still need to follow up with the other stuff.
Right.
You need to get to the root cause. I mean, that
Right.
helped for now.
Right,
But
it
you
isn't-
still
it
gotta
might
get
not
down.
take that
Right.
the true point of origin, which might just even be that she's lacking an enzyme
Exactly.
that she was not born with. I mean, even that can happen. That can be a
Right.
very simple thing of
So
just
by-
taking those methylated B vitamins
Right.
that actually
such a
create the
big
optimal
difference.
environment for the thyroid.
And then when you see the thyrosin off, and even though your TSH blood test may come back normal, when you do the thermography of the thyroid, you'll see if there's something going on or not.
Right.
And then maybe you need to do further testing, go back and check more tests, not just your TSH, because many times it could be Hashimoto's or something else that's
Right.
coming up,
It could
or some
be-
other underlying
Right.
graves, and it just didn't show yet.
Well, yeah, and,
You know?
and that's the funny thing is that generally speaking, allopathic medicine, as good as it is, people don't get that result of saying, hey, something's wrong with your thyroid until things are way out of line.
Right.
And what you're saying here is with the nutrient mapping, that you can actually kind of start to pinpoint that there may be some issues coming
Right.
down the pike, and there should be some ways that you can correct that. Whether you're eating too much raw greens.
Right.
For some people, that can be very tough on the thyroid. There are many different things.
Yeah.
If your liver's toxic, that's a really big issue, and that's something that I don't know if these things are complementary in seeing.
Yes, it'll show in the back when you have issues
Yeah.
with the liver.
Toxic liver is really,
And sometimes people can
A
actually
problem.
get toxic liver from taking the wrong kind of vitamins.
or too much.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, so that's why it's so great with Cell Wellbeing. It tells you the foods,
Right.
and we want to try to get the foods that we can absorb and get the most out of.
Right.
So combining all of it, you can really, if you're not feeling quite right, it can help you find that root cause so that you can do it naturally and get back to living bright and vibrant
Right.
and energetic and
Well, you certainly are.
have the
Yeah. You're definitely living. Darcy's living
So-
proof. She's just like bouncy and fun and
It's- thank
just
you.
and your skin is beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Seriously. So it's working for you.
Hanging in there for
Yeah.
55.
Yeah, you go, girly.
Yeah, hanging in there. I'm not giving up yet. So-
And something that I forgot to touch on was the camera. You
Yes.
talked about the sensitivity of the camera.
Correct.
And they're not pixels, but they're similar to pixels.
Correct.
So
and the strength of my camera is 640 by 480, which
Okay.
it's a strong one it's the strongest one that's on the market right now.
okay.
And it's real important when you have your test done. You don't want to go get your picture done by one that's 160 by 120.
Yeah,
and
that
then-
sounds too low.
then-
It sounds
then
like it's not.
they-
That's not high resolution.
But then they compress it down to where it's actually 320 by 240. So they're saying that's a 320 by 240 camera, but it's not.
But it's
a compressed
not.
image to get it to that.
Got it.
And it's not, because when you blow that back up to the actual size,
And then it's still the whatever
it's not
was
going to
the
be the same
160.
picture. It's not going to have all the same details.
Right.
So you want to make sure you have a good camera that's taking your pictures, but even more important than that is the right person reading it.
Right. I
You
agree.
know.
That's if you can get someone to take the good
Yeah.
images in a great environment,
Right.
then you can actually get a better result. And
Yeah.
like, what are some of the things that you have to tell patients before
Okay.
they come to do their scan? Because,
Okay.
like I said, I know it's by
Exactly.
appointment only.
Yes.
But what could they be aware of prior
Okay, you
to?
cannot be in the sun 3 days before. You cannot be sunburned. You can't be running a fever, because all of that would throw it off. If you're out in the sun and you come in, you're going to be reflecting the heat from the sun.
Got it. So
You're going to show up like Casper the Friendly Ghost.
Like-
you're going to be white.
like radiation. I've just been out in the
So-
sun. Okay.
Yeah, you don't want to drink hot coffee,
No hot
right
coffee.
before. So
No
you-
hot liquids of any sort.
Right.
Okay. And then what else?
couple hours before. But if someone drinks coffee every morning, I mean, you don't want to tell them, ignore it because then that will bring on a headache,
Right.
and that'll show if someone's having a headache. It'll show up in the thermography.
Yeah, like with John.
Yeah.
His pictures
So-
showed the day that he went, he had a headache,
Right.
which is
So-
I think that's just fascinating.
Yeah, it shows so many different things that can help you see how your food's affecting you. Because that's the whole point, is getting the right foods so that you can live the best.
Right.
So the camera is very important.
Okay.
We do want to keep the camera and the environment controlled.
Right.
And it's just funny, before I started and Dr. Amalou agreed to read my images,
Uh-huh.
he tested the whole room over a 3-hour
Really?
period.
Wow.
Yes, he tested the room, the camera, to make sure, because if he's going to put his name on that report,
Yeah. Good for him.
he wouldn't do it unless he knew I had a stable environment with the camera that's stable, that's consistent over a period of time. So he made me test the camera, test the room before he agreed to do my readings.
I
He's
like
the only
that.
doctor that asked.
I like that.
None of the others cared.
Yeah, that's being very thorough.
Yeah.
I like the thoroughness.
I really,
So,
yeah, it was fantastic.
Very cool. So, what would happen? Like, I just want to do an
Mm-hmm.
example here. So, what happens if, let's say, you do a scan of the front of the body and you see, some higher temperatures here in this area or a little lower? What would be your thoughts on that? I mean, I know you're not the person. It doesn't diagnose. We know that.
Yeah.
But what goes through your mind with all the experience that you have if something like that were to occur?
Okay, so if it's in the abdomen and I'm seeing increased, first of all, I'm going to take extra images.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm going to do extra angles to make sure I'm getting every image possible to submit to the doctor.
Got it.
And then when he does reading, it'll come back. And, after I get done, I'll show them the pictures and I'll let them see. We had a little, because I can pull it up on my computer and show them before I send it to the doctor.
Okay.
There was a little issue here. Are you having any pain there?
Right.
And we'll send it and we'll see what comes back. Because sometimes, even though it may be showing red or inflamed in one area, kind of like acupuncture, it could be a cause from somewhere else in the body.
Right. Could be from the spinal column, like
Exactly.
you said with the fingers. It could be impingement in the cervical
In the nerve.
vertebra.
Yeah,
right.
Right. Exactly. So, I don't know all of that. That's why it goes to the doctor. But I do take extra images when I see anything irregular to make sure I have every image possible to get the complete report back correctly.
Okay.
But it's not always, because if somebody just looks at it, sometimes they think it's here, my problem's right there. Sometimes that's not where the root problem is. And that's the whole thing about this, getting to the root cause.
Yes, and that's I think where the
Right.
cell well-being and the nutrient
great
mapping,
combination.
everything comes together so that you get a much better picture
Yeah.
of the patient's life. What do they need? What can they actually do together? With in collaboration with you and their doctor, their regular doctor, if that doctor wants to collaborate and participate, and the doctor that reads the scan.
Right. And how many times have you gone to a nutritionist? They say, based on this symptom, we need to take that and that and that. Well, that's great, but wouldn't it be better if you have a report to take to the nutritionist with you to say, here's what it's showing I'm low on, and this does your amino acids, your minerals,
Oh, okay.
your
Wow.
vitamins.
Okay, good.
All of it. It's not just, your B, vitamin D. It shows all of it. So when you go to an actual nutritionist or someone who's educated in that can help you,
Okay.
they're looking at the complete picture, and they can
can't
see.
they can't mess it up.
No, they can see exactly. So
It's
you know what you need,
foolproof.
and that's what I think is so great. You need what you need for what you need,
Right, 'cause every
not
person is
because it
different.
worked for somebody else.
Right. Right. Which
Somebody else
is-
can take aloe and it worked, but that may not be what you need.
Exactly.
So it helps you to know what you need for you to do your best.
Right. It's I
And
like
it's-
that individualized
Yeah.
care. So tell me what, if I can ask, I mean, I don't know if I can, what would something like this cost? If I call you up and I go, Darcy, I need to come in and see you. I need to have a scan. What else do I need? Can
Okay.
you talk to me
So
about
the,
that?
The breast is $125.
Okay.
for the breast. And the one thing I do, if you come in for your breast scans, because what I found is a lot of people, they save up because it's not covered by insurance.
Right, of course not.
And they save up to get it done. And then they don't go back and follow up if there was anything showing. And you really want to follow
Yeah,
up.
you got to follow up.
So what
Follow
I do,
up, folks.
if you come back within the first 6 months, I only charge you $65 for your follow-up on the
Okay,
breast.
good.
Because it's so important to follow up.
I agree. That's
So-
that's fair. I like that.
And
I like
then
that a
a
lot.
full body is $300.
Okay.
If you it's you can find so much in the hands and the feet. So it is good to do a full body scan if you can.
Right. Yeah.
You
I think
know,
that sounds smart. It sounds
it's
like
great.
it's probably the best way to go. Actually,
Yeah.
is just to get a baseline, so you know where you're starting.
Right.
Folks, you can actually find Darcy Barron at Third Eye Thermography Holistic Center down at 1451 West Cypress Creek Road, Suite 300 in Fort Lauderdale. And her phone is 954-204-5602. And is there anything you'd like to leave us with? Any parting thought?
Well, I hope
You got 2
everybody.
minutes. It's okay. Yeah,
Okay.
plenty
I
of
hope
time.
everybody, if you can get thermography done, have it done.
Okay.
Have it done by someone who has a
Knowledgeable.
controlled environment
Come to Darcy.
with a doctor. Okay.
I'm just going to recommend because the things that you've told me are really
Yeah.
critically important for this type of a scan.
Because I really want everybody to feel their best.
Right.
To the best that you can, because there's so much you can do if you're willing to make the changes. And so many are striving to do nutritional things, but they don't know where to start.
Right.
Or
This is
you
a
know,
great place. This is a
they
great
read
place
this
to
article
jumpstart.
that, take turmeric for this, take that
Right.
for that. I mean,
Don't-
you can
yeah,
have
don't do that. That's
you can
just
have a
hodgepodge.
closet full of
Yeah,
stuff.
don't do
You
that.
can get one test and narrow it down to exactly what you need.
Agreed.
And the cell well-being is that's $125 to have the cell well-being nutrient mapping done.
Perfect.
So then you know exactly what you need for you.
Which is a wonderful thing. Like I said, that individualized type of care makes such a difference.
And when
Thank you. Oh, go ahead.
Right. And when I get the callbacks and say, I feel so much better, I love
Yes,
it.
that's the fulfillment.
That's the great.
That's the
yes.
stuff that we live for. We
It
live
is.
for. Somebody says, "Yeah, I feel good. I'm cured. It's all good."
Yes, it is.
Darcy, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I really appreciate it. Folks,
Aw,
thank you
thank
so
you.
much for
Thank
joining
you.
me here on the Faith Washington Show, live on Facebook, 95.3 FM, 1470 AM, and the iHeartRadio app. Folks, have a really great night. We'll see you next week. Thank you. You've been listening and watching The Faith Washington Show, where we have widened your view of the world. Our guests share their business, family, and fun life hacks to make your world better. Hope you've learned something to apply to your life and business.
The opinions expressed on the